Was it a big turnout?
It was small. It was just that. Nice. Just nice. Just wanted to
It's a small house.
Wait, you just want our opinion.
Yeah.
Good morning.
All right, there we go. Good intentions.
Hey, Marvin. Go ahead.
Susan.
Audio.
No.
That Harris tweet. Yeah.
I think
She's a good girl. I used to sell. Oh. Oh, great.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure.
This was 1960 and 62, 63.
Yeah, it's all
I'm still hooked up on the diversion in the Bear River, and I talked to my father. We're going to qualify and put that together as a representation. It's huge. Yeah, they're all over.
might be on recorded right now.
Yeah, okay. Coming your way.
Use my fish socks this morning.
Remember, you gotta turn this on. But this should be recorded. You know, yeah, I just don't put it on till you fixed my brain.
Yeah.
I'll come with you and check.
That's the appendectomy kit. Yeah, good.
Sometimes they use it.
No infections.
Lunch with Vicky last week.
Good.
She's in grade 8 in September. The water rates on the first grade class. That'd be
I know.
Barbara, I did very different high schools. Two area boards. Yeah. She still hasn't figured it out.
I'm good. Don't have a scheduling conflict internal and into the
No, is it just this one? I'm good. When I didn't see the dates, I got a little nervous. I'll be calling.
You only go in there so many times. Jesus.
Yeah.
actually lost on it. It's one of those stories, right?
They think a little bit towards the tail end of their lifespan.
Yeah, she was fun.
Don't we all?
It just grinds on you, down the tightness in the house. That everybody's being slowed down.
Need order, please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have, I'll put chains on you. Down, boy, down.
I have a stiff knee and I'd rather not sit.
Oh, please come, or you're just standing, you're not coming forward.
I am coming forward.
Well, sometime before we get old.
It's too late for that.
Certainly too late for me, I'm not expecting.
You just don't fall off your bike there in front at the podium.
I don't like bikes anymore, please. Maybe interested to know. I'm Bob Center and I live in Nevada County. I live in Director Wilcox's division. And I'm here to speak briefly about the request for proposal for financial feasibility study for Centennial. On March 8th, the managing director wanted to let the board know that at the end of last week, which turned out to be March 3rd, the district released the RFP, the request for proposal, for the financial feasibility component of Centennial. So we are starting that process now. I don't know who of you has seen the RFP. I obtained a copy last week and I can give you copies if you like. An assessment of the financial feasibility of Centennial seems like a good idea. This evaluation, conducted by a qualified analyst, could be important in your decision on whether or not to build Centennial. In conducting a study of the sort requested in the RFP, an early step is to select the important topics and ask the right questions regarding these topics. Does the RFP do this? My initial impression is that there may be topics missing from the RFP. For example, hydropower revenue was not included in the discussion of potential revenue streams. A project to generate new hydro revenue to help finance Centennial has complexities around how it will be regulated, how it will be operated, and around its long-term profitability. An evaluation of the net worth of new hydro associated with Centennial by a qualified analyst would be useful. I recommend that you read the RFP and judge its adequacy. It appears to be general enough and flexible enough so that if you recommend changes, the RFP may be able to be modified during vendor selection and contract negotiations. Would you like copies of this, anybody?
Sure.
I'm sure it'll become available in a timely manner.
Yeah, I'm sure the REM can make copies available to us.
You still want a copy, Nick? Good, thank you.
Is the copy of the RFP or?
This is a copy of the RFP.
Thanks. I could give this to Chris.
We'll make copies and make sure that it's available.
We'll be sure that the copies get distributed. And my admonition, as always, Bob, is that under public comment, we are not really able to engage in dialogue on this issue.
Well, I understand
But
that.
you know that.
Oh, I understand
I'm just saying
but-
that for the record.
Yeah.
And so with that admonition, good morning, Bob.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Wilcox, members of the board, staff, and members of the public. My name is Bob Gore. I live in Grass Valley. I'm a standby customer of NID. First, I want to thank Pascal for being here today and doing what I feel is your job. I am no longer the chair of FONA. Doug Holman has that job, and I speak only for myself. I apologize for taking more time than was allotted at the last meeting, so I'll be brief. I believe you all have my contact information. I would ask you please to contact me and tell me your objections to videotaping and live streaming of your 2 monthly meetings so that I know your feelings. You certainly know mine. Thank you for letting me speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Good morning, board members. My name is Mikos Faberzoon. I've lived in Nevada City for the last 3 years in a condominium project called Broad Street Commons, also known as Nevada City Co-Housing. Our homeowners association is a customer of NID. I wish to speak on the subject of video casting or live streaming and share with you some information that I obtained from talking with media staff members of the cities of Woodland and Davis in Yolo County, where I lived before moving up here. But first, a comment. I was surprised and disappointed to learn that a motion made at a previous NID board meeting to take up consideration of the proposal to live stream meetings died simply for lack of a second. To close discussion on a matter of deep concern to the community in this manner is a display of disregard for the democratic process. While Congress may play the game, we expect you, our local representatives, to adhere to a higher standard of conduct. Returning to the subject, yesterday I spoke with Robert Schultz from the Media Services section of the Davis City Manager's Office to inquire about their experience with video casting. Like the cities of Grass Valley and Nevada City, they live stream and produce downloadable video archives of all their various public meetings. They've been doing so for the past 15 years. And although they have a high-end system, which is required for the breadth of services they provide, they also do graphic design and produce in-house training videos. Robert indicated that smaller agencies can easily bring a live streaming and archiving service online for between $20,000 and $30,000, which I think is a figure that I've heard used before, which is a less than 0.05% of NID's 2016 budget. It sounds affordable to me. Robert commented that Davis's investment was a wise choice. He emphasized that repeatedly in our conversation. In addition to providing a valuable service by enhancing the public's ability to participate in the democratic process, there's an added benefit for staff who will be presenting at NID's public meetings such as this one. They won't have to sit in chambers through a long agenda waiting for their item to come up. They can watch from their desks for the queue while doing other work. Finally, the board should recognize that audio-only recordings, even if the audio were broadcast in real time, are insufficient today. With the use of Excel and PowerPoint presentations now common at public meetings, the visual content cannot be shared using only audio. During this and future meetings, think to yourselves how difficult it would be to follow a budget presentation if you could not view the bar graphs and pie charts being displayed. Or imagine the difficulty in conjuring up an image from audio commentary about a photograph that is absent from view. So, if you choose to hold board meetings during normal working hours, such as this meeting today, when many of your stakeholders are unable to attend, then I believe you are obligated to enable public access through video casting the proceedings. So, thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Michael Hillwell. I live in Division 1 of the NID district. I have two things I'd like to bring to your attention this morning. The first is my disappointment to see that there is no agenda item concerning live streaming, archiving, and indexing. I think it's long overdue, and I look forward to a meeting at which you at least have a discussion if you don't come to a decision. But I'd also like you to be aware of the outcome of a conversation with the general manager I had after the April Administrative Practices Committee meeting. At that meeting, Chair Wilcox said he was not able to access backup documents online because he had not received his snail mail agenda, so he was relying on the online posting. And it made it difficult for him to be prepared for the meeting, not being able to access the backup document. After the meeting, I asked about Brown Act compliance for posting committee's agenda. And the general manager said that committee meetings were not covered by the Brown Act because there wasn't a quorum of the NID board present. And that therefore standing committees of the board were not covered by the Brown Act. I expressed some surprise due to my experience at the county and on the county's United City School Board, where standing committees were covered by the Brown Act. By the time I got home, the general manager...
Dustin, do you want to address any of that?
Hold on. There's still more to the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than starting with the fraud, there is...
Because there's a simple explanation.
Yeah, so the general manager's tribute, he contacted council following our discussion and found out that yes, committee meetings are covered by the Brown Act, and therefore the posting needs to be done, the documentation need to be available in compliance with the Brown Act. And I thank you for having prompted.
Everybody that I spoke to, I called.
No dialoguing.
Thank you, Scott.
And I want to thank you for that. I will leave to others whether decisions made at non-Brown Act compliant meetings are valid. There have been instances where decisions made by a body that has not complied with the Brown Act have been found to be invalid. What it tells me is that it's time for to have a Brown Act workshop for the board, the staff, and the public, so we all know what the requirements are under the Brown Act. Whether you're a board member or a committee member or a member of the public, I think we'd all benefit. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's nice to be at a board meeting and be a member of the public. My name is George Olive. I live up at the end of Banner Lavacap Road outside Nevada City. And I better put my glasses on. I want to ask the board this morning to put the matter of video streaming board meetings back on the agenda for a further discussion. I'm picturing a collaborative exploration of alternatives by the Administrative Practices Committee, making use of NID and community resources to find an approach to public interaction that makes the most sense. I asked the board and general manager, Scherzinger, to review and consider Lou Sitzer's comments from the prior board meeting, especially the offer of resource assistance from NCTV. Like Lou, my background is education and community service. As a school district superintendent here locally and in Vermont, I have lived through the politics, pain, and pressures of elected board decision-making. What Lou said about education is my view as well. That we solve all manner of complex problems by putting our heads together and educating each other. My time supporting school boards in their efforts to deliver community education priorities while satisfying state and federal requirements led me over and over again to the value of two-way communication. When decisions became contentious, say a charter school proposal that infuriated the teachers union, board members wanted their thinking and the information they were working with to be fully understood by the community. Convenient special meetings, information nights, meet and greets would be held to try and keep information clear. To be clear, the board's thinking had to be transparent. School board decision-making, while perhaps not always popular, had at least to be understood. I was a superintendent for a while in Vermont, where property owners paid directly for schools and taxpayers scrutinized the daylights out of every agency's budget. Videotaped meetings would have been a godsend. Progressive school boards there reached purposefully into their communities to engage those with different points of view. They had to establish trust in the program building progress in order to improve schools. Like those school systems, NID is all about projects and continuous improvement. Let your constituents see into your deliberations. Be transparent. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you sit in those seats at a time of unexpected political engagement. A lot of people want to scrutinize public officials and public works at all levels. This public scrutiny falls particularly heavily on NID because NID has, over recent decades, been able to function without much public engagement. Take, for instance, NID's acquisition of properties in the reservoir inundation zone, which has required an FOI request to see into NID's actions. Given the current political climate, pursuing an expensive and complex dam project only adds to the increasing need for NID to change how it deliberates. The greater the potential cost to the rate and taxpayer, the more critical public trust is required. Video streaming your board meetings would signal NID's intention to open the agency to a full exchange of ideas, information, and resources with the communities you serve. Especially now, taking a thorough look at video streaming and indexing your meetings has become a signal issue that tells the voters and the ratepayers either that NID will function as it always has, or that this public agency seeks to interact more fully with the communities it serves. Thank you.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Miles Lee. I'm here on behalf of myself and a few other residents of Scotts Flat Dam Road. I realize that our road's not the only one that got washed out this winter, but I did want to make you aware that we have a problem down there. Luckily, it's past my property and I don't have to deal with it, but there's an elderly woman and a couple that just had a newborn baby, and they're not able to get to their houses, so they're renting in town. So because of the high volume of traffic, it's created mud, and then the rain washed the road away, and there's an area that's 3-foot ditches, and it's inaccessible to propane trucks and fire trucks. So I was hoping, I've had a couple people come out to give me estimates. I started a road association with the neighbors. In the estimates, they covered every section just because they were there. They don't all need to be attended to, but I was hoping to get your all's help and at least fixing the worst parts of the road so that the lady and the couple with their baby can move back into their homes. So, got my scribbles here. Let's see if I missed anything. So I've made several repairs by hand to try to dry up the worst of the areas so that hopefully we can get a tractor in there and get the people back into their houses. A traffic study done by the county last year showed that there's 100 cars a day up to that come down the road, and there's 4 full-time residents and myself and 4 other part-time residents, so it's mostly the other traffic that's creating the problems. The one problem that I speak of in particular I don't have to deal with, but a couple other sections are starting to collapse due to people cutting turns too early and caving the road in. So if nothing else, I hope that you all could possibly help us fix a couple of the worst sections so that we can get fire truck down there and also NID trucks and public and anyone else who likes to use the lake there. So thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello to the board. My name is Diana Suarez. I live across the, and hello to Pasquale, and thank you for live streaming and videotaping this meeting. I live across the Bear River in Colfax, and a whole half of the watershed is across the Bear River and not represented by NID, so that's another reason we need to live stream the meetings, because I drive a long ways to come here twice a month to see these board meetings, because your impact impacts my life so heavily, I need to be here. And to have it available to the half the watershed that's on the other side of the Bear River, I think is really important, and not to make those people drive all the way over here during work hours when they can't make it. The second issue that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is the Nisenan tribe is holding a public dialogue April 29th and 30th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Bear River Group Campground, 2500 Campground Road, Colfax, California. And there's a 1-mile hike to the group campground from the day-use parking lot. This event will be the Nisenan Cultural Perspective and the Threat to the Bear River from Centennial Dam, a presentation of the Nisenan tribal culture and history, a panel discussion of the impacts of the proposed Centennial Dam project on Nisenan heritage sites and the culture today, demonstrations of cultural practices, language, and songs. These events, the public will be open both Saturday and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and they are free events. The Nisenan people will be in retreat at the Bear River Group Camp during the entire weekend, but the public is invited 11 to 2 on both days. So if anyone is interested in learning more from the Nisenan tribal perspective, please attend. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Richard Burton. I live in Peardale. I get both ag water and treated water through NID. I came here today to urge you to allow video streaming of your meetings. And I have a couple of particular, perhaps pressing reasons for me. One is that you have approved, at least tentatively, moving ahead with the Centennial Dam project. And I think that's an issue that needs to be more fully discussed, and hopefully that will come out in board meetings, and those of us in the public who can't come down here every 2 weeks can be more aware of what's going on. The other reason that really strikes me is I've tried to follow the Oroville Dam debacle, I guess would be a way to say it. And it really brings to mind that I tried to go by there the other day. I went down to Oroville to see Mr. LaMalfa, and you can't even get close by. The roads are all blocked off. There's armed policemen on all the roads. You can't even see them. But it would appear to me that two things seem clear from Oroville Dam. One is that that they were giving a rosy report on the condition of the dam, the agency and the ones governing it. And that makes me concerned about how you guys are managing your current dams. I mean, how do we know how well they are being managed before you take on a whole new project? And that brings to my mind the need for you to have the public to have some sort of independent review of your dam safety. Because I don't know how you do that. I realize I'm running short, but I want to finish this. Because if you just hire engineers that have a financial interest in having further business with the board, then I don't think you will have satisfied the public. But I think the other lesson, though, that I've been reading about Oroville is there are some design flaws in the Oroville Dam that may well apply to your dam system too, and they're not being publicized. So for that reason too, I think it's really imperative that you open this up, you videotape, and you have some sort of independent review. Thank you.
Ram, just to clarify some of those things, all of our reservoirs and dams are reviewed separately by a state agency, Division of Dam Safety.
By DSOD, yes.
Yeah. All right.
The same ones presumably did Oroville.
Except they're the ones that are reviewing their own dam.
Dialoguing again. The prior one could have been on the agenda with cultural.
Excuse me, Richard Thomas, a raw water customer from the city. First of all, I want to thank the staff. I believe the microphone is on.
It is on.
I requested that some time ago, and And now it works, and other people as well. My voice is fairly large, but there are other folks that I can't hear, which is why I sit over there. Everything is directed that way. Much of what I plan to say today has been said by others. I really appreciate George Olive's comments, well-respected and experienced member of the community. Comments right on. Michael Hillwell as well, I appreciated his comments. And the gentleman I don't know from co-housing, the first time I'd seen that gentleman, I thought his comments were right on. So that takes care of video. I would like to thank Pascal. It has literally been on my to-do list to subscribe for months, if not years. Learning. There must be somewhere we can all go ho or something without applauding, because I know it upsets some members of the board and not considered appropriate. We should figure that out. I learned yesterday.
Let me hear a ho.
Oh, let me hear a ho. Pascal. Oh! So for. So for, for Pascal, I learned yesterday that it is costing Pascal and Susan and Ubinet in the neighborhood of $100 an hour to use her data plan to stream live these meetings. So yesterday I became a year-long subscriber. I didn't feel it was right to pass for cash, although I've done that a couple of years ago. But I'm now a real listener, or a real reader, I think, as she says. That takes care of Pascal. I got 3 minutes, I'm moving quick. Internal communications at your afternoon retreat. Not too long ago, I sent what I thought was a private email to a member of the board. And serendipitously, I learned that that email had been circulated to other members of the board. I can't say all, but perhaps some other members of the board. And some questions have led me to believe that if you use a link on the NID site to contact a single board member, that is not a private communication. At the least those are filtered, and I guess in some cases directed to other board members as well, perhaps in their packet or perhaps as an email. I'm not familiar. That to me is a critical internal communication item that I certainly hope is on your short-term agendas to discuss either today, at your retreat, or some other time, because that, to me, is simply not right. If that is the process that the district follows with what we, an individual in the public, thinks is a private communication, then there needs to be a large disclaimer on that page on your website that says, this email that you're directing to a particular board member may be circulated to other board members as well. I do appreciate the board members that have shared their personal emails with me, and I will continue to use those when I feel it necessary to communicate with members of this board. Thank you.
Thank you. A point of order, Chair. This is the second time somebody's addressed something that's on the agenda, and we could dialogue on it if they would talk about it under number 11 in this case.
Did we address number 11?
We haven't addressed number 11.
It's on the agenda. No, it's what I'm saying. You would have to wait, but it would be, we take public comment on everything that's on the agenda. The whole
Are we
thing is-
dialoguing, Scott?
I'm addressing the chair as a point of order.
Thank you. I'll be
Only
back.
because I like dialogue, but that's, nobody understands what's
Yeah, here's a good point.
And then we could ask.
We'll move on to Sid.
All right.
I will lower that.
Good morning. My name is Sid Brown. I live in Nevada City. I'm representing myself. And I wish I had taken the time, although I've given it a lot of thought, to have written out my comments and my input as carefully and as well done as George Olive. I stand before you today to urge the board to reconsider the proposal to fund, not allow, but to fund live streaming and indexed video recordings of the NID board meetings. I realize this issue has been discussed in these chambers and on the pages of the newspapers and online. If public sentiment is an indication, you should know by now that NID has, in the words of George Olive, obtained what public agencies desire, and public engagement. I personally have not been attending these meetings since before January. And I'm working hard to educate myself, but I realize not everyone has the ability to come 2 times a week, maybe 4 times a month, depending on committee meeting attendance during the day. At the last board meeting, when this video recording was considered, I attended the meeting, but I had to leave before the conclusion of that discussion because of employment requirements. So I had to go to work, and I couldn't be there to hear and see and engage in that very extensive and somewhat frustrating discussion. I was in Flagstaff, Arizona at your last board meeting, and through the generosity of Ubinet, I was able to follow along with interest and appreciation. I am interested in pursuing possible grants if funding of this $20,000 investment is of concern to NID, although I appreciate the previous gentleman's comment about 1/2 of 1% or 0.5 of 1% of NID's annual budget seems to be a reasonable investment to gain the trust and to proceed with the transparency that I believe our public requires and requests. So thank you for your consideration. I do request that this come up at a future board meeting, maybe after a committee meeting, maybe after more engagement, but I really think NID would benefit from a positive move in this regard. Thank you.
I'm Shirley Osgood, and I live in Grass Valley, and I'm an NID customer, and I vote. And I want to apologize for my behavior over the last couple of board meetings, because I'm usually a really nice person. But since January 20th, I've been waking up to news that's kind of freaked me out almost on a daily basis. So please forgive me if I came across kind of harsh in the past. I would like to say this morning that, repeating kind of what Richard said, you know, I know that Ubinet is not a nonprofit organization, am I right? So I would like to encourage, in lieu of us having hired her, I don't think we have, some donations. You said you weren't going to pass that, but I wrote out a check based on my small retirement, and I'd like to give it to her and hope some others will donate, and remember to give regularly. Thank you.
Good morning, NID. We meet again. I was here yesterday for a committee meeting. I want to thank Pascal very much for airing these meetings, live streaming them. I have no qualms with handing her cash, and I've done so. I give her a dozen eggs every meeting. You have to give your name. Oh, thank you, John. Mike Pasner, Indian Springs Organic Farm, Penn Valley, been buying water from NID for 31 years, still doing it. So Nancy, thank you for taking the high road on this issue. It needs to be done. It will eventually be done. You gentlemen need to pay attention to what the public wants. We are taxpayers. We are ratepayers. Everybody pays taxes to NID. We want to know what's going on. We need that transparency. NID's mission statement, you're good stewardships of the watershed. Why can't that be done in transparency is my question. It should be done that way, and it will be eventually. You're doing $133,000 on PR for the crackdown, the Centennial Reservoir and Power. Why can't you come up with the less than $20,000 that it cost to tell all of your constituents what it is you're up to? Yesterday I was hauling manure all day after being here at a board meeting, at a meeting. It was a lovely day, believe me. Kind of followed suit. The guy I haul from owns a stable down the road from me. And I told him about this issue, and he says, I can't believe they don't just do it. Why wouldn't they just do it? And that is the big question. I do hope you gentlemen will email me. You've got my emails, and tell me what your objection is to live streaming these board meetings, because I totally don't get it. And obviously, a lot of other people don't get it. get this item back on the agenda so it can be voted on. Get your boardroom empty. Hasn't been 3 minutes yet.
Really it has.
You're just messing with me. Get it back on the
But
agenda.
I'll give you 30 seconds more.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's see this issue on the agenda soon so that the public can participate. It'll unjam your board meetings, your parking lot, and you won't get this bad press. Amazing. When R.L. Crabb does a comic on you, you know you're catching it.
Okay. You got one more. And are there other people waiting after this? Then we're done. Okay.
Good morning.
Please
My name is
proceed.
Andy Dooley Miller. One of the, you have to excuse me if I get emotional. I'm one of the homeowners who's going to be displaced by this dam. And it's very important, your transparency. It's important for me to understand what you're thinking. And reading it or just hearing it isn't enough. I've been to as many meetings as I've been able to do. And I've seen information change, and I've heard what your opinions are, but not enough for me to understand why I have to lose my home. I'm a retired teacher, and I didn't expect to have to lose a place where I was thinking that I was going to spend the rest of my life. And I think any information that you can give us, that we can see your faces, makes it easier for us to understand. And that's why I'm asking for as much transparency as you can give us. Because it really is important to us. And it's a difference between people like me who are going to lose their home and then people who are removed from that and have to make decisions. And I feel like you're part of our community, and we're so distant from, say, Washington, D.C. And it's so difficult to understand what they're thinking when their representatives make their decisions. And I just expect more from you. I expect people who live in my community to do what's right for us, to talk to us, to let us know what you're thinking.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anybody else popping up. Let's go on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, we'd like to remove item number 11 from today's agenda. The retreat this afternoon, we have both internal and external scheduling conflicts for both the board and for members of staff. So we'd like to remove that from today's agenda.
So item number 11 is the off-site workshop at Scotts Flat. That will not take place today.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I would request that we pull item number 4, not because I have an objection to it, but I just think it needs to be fully aired on the regular agenda.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda, absent item 4.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, roll call please.
Division 1?
Aye.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Chris?
Yes.
It's not with regards to the minutes, but our packet, you're new, a glaring, I think, oversight on each of the items is that I was not seeing where you need to address whether or not it was approved or not by or recommended by the committee. Several of these said nothing about committee, and I know they went to committee.
In the staff reports? Where they should be.
Again, usually we put it in the very first,
Of the staff report, no.
just in the very beginning, as recommended by said and said committee, this, or not recommended. It's an important thing for those of us not on a given committee, please. Yes on the consent?
Thank you, Director Miller.
Appreciate
There were
it. I
two
mean,
items
you're new.
that were heard by the WHO committee, and there was no report.
You know
I
what I'm
picked it up
saying,
too, I was
yeah.
just going to address it at a different time.
Right on.
There was no report from the committee dealing with those two items.
And we had made recommendations.
Right.
Yes, yeah. It's good to have it in there right on
Thank you.
top. Yeah.
Noted. Division 5?
Hi. Now we'll go on to our 905 employee introduction.
Having second thoughts?
I hope not. Good morning, board, staff, audience members. I'm Brian Powell, maintenance manager, NID. It's my pleasure to introduce one of our newest employees here today. This is Shane Slattery. Shane was born and raised in Nevada County. After high school, he moved down to the Bay Area for a few years. And then after those few years, he came back to Grass Valley. And he's worked for several construction contractors here in town. He worked for a few years with Walsh Construction, building contractor, remodeling. Got some good construction experience. And more recently, he's been working with Hanson Brothers for the past year or so. While he was working for Hanson Brothers, he obtained his Class A and worked as an operator for them. And we're very happy to bring him on with his Class A into the district. It really helps us with the work that we do. Shane's married. He has 5 kids, ranging from 4 to 18, which is hard to believe. It don't look like you have an 18-year-old. But Shane's he's an outdoorsman. He likes fishing, hunting, camping, and motorcycles. And we're very happy to bring Shane on and welcome aboard. Thank you very much. All right.
I'd just like to say I'm honored and privileged to be here as an employee at NID, and I look forward to my future. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Moving on to general orders, item number 4. We'll go to item number 4, Blair Court. I'm sorry, I didn't want to steal your thunder, Jim. Since I pulled it.
Okay. Good morning, board, staff, public. Item 4. So this item here, the Blair Court improvement area. So basically, Mr. Bill Green from Nevada City Engineering has been working on development on Blair Court off of Greenthorn Road. As part of that process, he has come to the district and asked for a fire service dedication letter, basically a letter we provide to the developers indicating how much fire flow potential may be available at that location for their use and for their design purposes. At that point in time, Mr. Green was informed that the district's normal policy is that we only allow 4 contiguous parcels to be served by 1 private fire service. However, in his development, he is developing 5 parcels. So he has come back to NID and asked for a variance to allow 5 parcels to be served from the 1 private fire service. Normally that would cause us a bit of pause, but in this particular situation, the development he's proposing basically dead ends at these 5 parcels. So there is no potential future expansion beyond these 5, and therefore it seems apropos that the variance be accepted, and the staff at the WHO committee brought this forward and garnered that recommendation. And so we have brought it back to the board to finalize it and hopefully allow that to move forward. Questions?
Okay, I did not pull this agenda item because I had a problem with the proposal. I just thought that variances should see the light of day and appear in public. And so therefore, we're doing that. Thank you very much.
Chip, looks like there's 2 parallel treated water lines going up Greenhorn there.
That's correct.
The 30 and the 8-inch. And he's going to be coming off of the 30 or the 8?
The 30-inch will provide it is a transmission main, but this will be a better service branch to his development off of that transmission main, providing higher flow and all that.
All right. And are these lines looped at any point?
In his development or
overall?
Overall, they are looped. In his development, it will be dead end because it's a cul-de-sac.
I think it's a very good idea to have a fire hydrant in that area right there.
And I agree with that. I just like to see variances to district policy.
We had extensive discussion about potential liability in this, and it was assured to us that it is really the county's responsibility. We just need to achieve the 1,500 gallon or whatever the figure was for the actual flow. Because one of my questions is, what do we call a private, fire service, and what constitutes it? And then we wanted to make sure that our liability, that we wouldn't be held responsible. And indeed, your answers were that.
Thank you for bringing that up. I did include the fire flow analysis letter in the packet this time. And if you'll review down at the bottom paragraph, it does disclaim that the district does not guarantee or represent that specific or certain minimum water pressure or volume of water will be available through a fire service. It basically states that this is the flow that may be available from our distribution system. We recommend you design your facilities appropriately beyond this point.
And according to the county's authority.
The fire department, yes, and the developer. Correct.
As it was a variance, that was our concern to committee. It was, well, wait a minute, what are we doing here? It is not our authority. It is the fire department's authority to determine what is adequate.
Correct.
Yes.
So by including 5 parcels instead of the standard 4, the same fire flow is available to all 5 parcels.
That's correct.
So they're all equally protected. Have a motion on this?
Sure. Motion to approve the request from Nevada City Engineering Incorporated on behalf of the developer of the Blair Court Waterline Extension and Canal Encasement Project to allow a variance of 5 contiguous parcels to be served by 1 private fire service.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Division 1? Aye. Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Division 5?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, having dealt with that, now we go to general orders. Item number 5, please.
Good morning, board, public and staff. It's agenda item number 5, Centennial Reservoir Project Cultural Resources Task Order number 10. Today in our audience is Linda Fisher from HDR and Jeremy Adams from E Corp, but they're getting to any of the technical questions of the process. To go into where we stand right now, we are currently working on a draft ER with exposure to the public of that draft ER somewhere in the area in the fall. We're looking at September, October at this time. As part of the review process and doing good diligence requires evaluating sites and areas. As part of our original draft EIR work with HDR included cultural resources. However, it is found that additional cultural resources need to be evaluated because we've added some additional areas, part of the roads and stuff like that have been added. Those indicate approximately 152 sites of different varying historic usage, and that is still to be evaluated. At this point, what the district is requesting at this time is a change order to the amount of $385,981 to HDR for this additional cultural resources review. This additional review confirms our commitment to develop the best document possible for this project. And by doing this, we get the most thorough document. At this point, staff is recommending this to the board and is requesting approval of this task order number 10 in the amount of $385,981 for this project. Yes, sir.
In the process of HDR doing this work, Gary, and identifying and quantifying those sites, do they quantify the surface area that is associated with those sites?
I'll let the technical experts.
It's Jeremy Adams. I'm an architectural historian and cultural resource task manager for the project with E-Corp, sub to HDR. Yes, we actually assess all the surface indicators of the site, and then actually to evaluate the sites, especially archaeological sites, we do test excavations determine the subsurface deposits of each site. So we do positive, so every test excavation all the way around determines whether it's positive or negative, and then that helps us determine the site boundary.
So it's a three-dimensional study, and at the end of your study is the total surface area quantified in a number over on the right-hand side of the page.
For all sites combined.
For all sites
It's for sites where there is a polygon. So some sites
Okay,
are points,
all right.
some sites are roads,
Good.
sites where it's a polygon, yes.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Any other board comment?
There's another piece of information, I think, about the budget. If you look in the projects and what's been spent so far, the amount spent on Centennial this year so far is $728,200. Can't read my writing. It's either $206 or $266. So when you give us just part of the picture, Gary, it's not enough. We need to know how much we spent overall, not just on consulting.
I can answer that as we speak right now. Our current status is, to date, as of April 20, 2017, in the new startup of the Centennial facility, is we spent about $8,944,093. That is our current spending to date. As far as contract values, we have a contract with AECOM in the amount of $1.9 billion. We've we have about 25% of that contract remaining. We have a contract with HDR in the amount of 2.5. I'm just using round numbers because it's easier at this point. And we've used about 76% of that contract. We have 76% of that contract left. I apologize. Quincy Engineering was hired at $190,000, and we're 33% complete. As of this point, that's what we've committed to date. What happens is because that money's rolled over from 2016, it does not show an encumbrance on this year. It is encumbered funds from 2016. And that's how this system works. That information is, that's what we spent to date. That's what we're encumbering in this. Those are the funds available for this fund, for this $385,981 task order change. Is the $3.5 million available for that?
Okay. It's probably helpful to know that, again, Jeremy Adams is a subcontractor working for ECOR under HDR.
That is correct.
Yeah, thanks.
But they are the technical experts in this area.
One more thing, Gary, and I want to make sure that everybody hears this. All of this information that you generate, or not all of it, but the majority of it is held in confidence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, this is not a transparent piece of paper because of that.
That's right. We don't want anybody messing with this stuff when they shouldn't be.
At this point, it is the recommendation of staff to approve a change order, a task order, $385,981 with HDR for this additional work.
Is there any public comment on this matter?
I have one.
Please step to the microphone.
I shall. What was that number, 900? And
please state your name for the record.
Mike Tasner, Indian Springs Organic Farm, Penn Valley.
Thank you.
I'm an NID customer and a taxpayer and a vote. 9 million, what was that number again? 8.9 million spent so far on a dam that will never happen. And you haven't done a financial analysis on it. You guys should be ashamed. And you won't have transparency on your actions on this board. It's getting silly. Thank you.
Run for office.
Huh?
Run for office. We can dialogue now, this is public. Run for office.
Thank you.
My name is Sid Brown, NID well, I pay taxes and I vote, and I live in District 1. I do have a question about this particular contract, and maybe it's not appropriate, but my question is there a consultation with more than the AIC group? Because I'm very concerned about the lack of communication and coordination with the local Nevada City Rancheria and the Colfax group and the Meadow Vista group of Native Americans who expressed concern. So I understand this is a change order to increase the survey work, but I'm curious about the actual engagement of the local communities of concern.
Can I ask the board to take all the comments and we'll respond after, at the end of the commentary?
Auburn Indian,
It's UAIC.
UAIC, excuse me, United Auburn Indian Council. Community.
So I need a definition for later, please, when this response would be. I'd appreciate it during this meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Our intent is to take all public comment and respond to the public comments because some of them overlap. And I think that's our intent. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. My name is Maury Hall, and I'm a resident of Placer County and customer of NID. So I just have some questions about the process that's used to identify these cultural sites. How thorough is it? And what assurance do we have that all of the sites are identified? Because it seems to me that, you know, that could be a challenge, especially if some of the sites involve buried items. So some information about the process would be helpful. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diana Suarez, and I just was struck by the irony of doing the site surveys and then the concern about keeping them secret and keeping them unimpaired when you're planning on inundating them under hundreds of feet of water, destroying them forever along with the culture that they represent. Thank you.
Well, the concern is to protect them from people coming in and taking things from those sites. That's the initial concern. I agree, there's a concern there. But the reason for not, do you find it humorous that I'm giving you an answer?
No, I'm listening. It's
Okay.
ironic.
All right, it's to protect the integrity of the site.
Right.
And under federal law, I think also, is the HIPAA kind of stuff is kind of not ours to discard either.
Yes.
We are heavily regulated on so many levels. One of them is this, right? I mean, the vendor should answer this, but, right, that we didn't make up that rule. That's a federal.
Gary will respond to the comments.
Richard Thomas, and I'm looking forward to Gary's response. I just, Director Drew circulated a paper on the Centennial Dam, and I appreciate you including me on the email list for that. And I have read it, and I will read it again, as is my nature of things that I find important to go back and review it, which, as a side note, is an argument for videotaping as well, because we can go back and review things, and I think that's a very important aspect of the archiving of the video. And I'm not familiar with the process. You mentioned the tribe that had applied for or responded to a particular piece of the process, and that's a clarification that I think Gary can probably give us, and I'd like to hear that. You could probably help him clarify that. Thank you, John.
He's got it down. We know what's happening there.
At this point, what I'd like to do is summarize and allow our consultant to come up and address these. But let me summarize what I've heard to this point so we're all on the same page. One is are we going to deal with other groups other than the UAIC, which is United Auburn Indian Council, if I'm correct? Community. Are we going to communicate with other groups? The second one is, what is the process of identifying a site and buried items? That's number two. We're going to be burying these under the dam. I don't know if there's a comment there, but I can allow if there's any comments from our technical experts on that. I would like them to outline the federal law concerning cultural resources and what can and cannot be released on those information, so people understand that even though there's criticism of transparency, these items do not come under Transparency Act issues. And then I don't think there's anything on the videotaping process I can discuss, but that will not be. But I have 4 items here. I think that's what was asked of the board. At this point, I'd like to let our subject matter experts and people talk about those issues.
Linda Fisher with HDR. And I'll
Jeremy Adams again, D-Corp.
And so to discuss the process a bit, and the first comment received regarding the consultation to date with the United Auburn Indian Community, Committee, sorry, so many different C words have been used. What has happened is the UAIC, acronym for that tribe, has contacted NID under Assembly Bill 52 to be a part of that consultation communication process. So far to date, that is the only tribe that NID is in consultation with in regards to the project. Other tribes are welcome to contact NID as part of that legislative process, but none to date have done so.
I'll answer the questions on the process to identify cultural resources. So the Office of Historic Preservation sets forth guidelines on how to identify resources. There are several steps in order to do so. The very first step in that process is to determine the project area. We've done that. That includes the inundation area proposed for the dam, as well as infrastructure and other components.
Do you have a surface area for the inundation area? Do you have a number that's associated with that?
We have an acreage assessment.
And what is that acreage?
It's roughly 2,200.
2,200, yeah.
Thank you.
Approximately.
Square feet, correct?
Acres.
The surface area on the reservoir, just for identification amongst all the people here, is 1,254 acres, not 22,000 acres.
Right. That's the difference. So after we've identified the study area, then we review historical aerials and historical maps for the entire project area to assess what we see could be older than 50 years. 50 years in age is the threshold to determine what is a cultural resource or not under California and federal state law. Then we send field staff that are qualified archaeologists to survey the entire property. They walk in 15-meter transects where they can, and where it's too much vegetation or no property access, or slopes are too bad, we do spot checks and other just aerial and map reviews. We also look at historical baseline data that's been done in the past by other individuals and agencies. Then through that effort, we identify resources. We compile a list of what those resources are, and that's what we've done so far. Now this next step in the process is to actually evaluate those resources.
Jeremy, where has UAIC provided support in that process?
Support, they are consulting under AB 52, so they have, actually, that's a good point, Rem. UAIC with ECOR has provided a qualified archaeologist member of their Indian community to join our field crew in every single step of the process. For every single field survey, they were out there with our field crew. They've also met with us periodically with meetings with NID to provide information on what they have, and we're going to continue doing that. And they will also provide, under this new change, a new member to join us in the evaluations.
There are two other groups potentially involved, the Nevada City group and the Colfax group. Under AB 52, was there a deadline that has come and passed that allows them to participate in this process?
There was a deadline for them to contact us to be officially recognized in that. I don't know exactly.
Contact NID.
Contact NID, yeah.
30 days after.
30 days after the, yeah.
Okay, and those tribes were fully made aware of the process?
Yes, so when the notice of preparation was submitted or sent out, released for public review and comment last February 2016, a list of tribes from the Native American Heritage Commission was included in the release in the public notification distribution list. And so other tribes were notified of the project, of the scoping process, and of NID initiating the CEQA process for the project. So they were given the opportunity to contact NID at that point.
And under AB 52, they had a window in which they had to respond to affirmatively participate in the process?
Yes.
And that was whatever, 30 days?
30 days.
And they failed to contact NID or the consultants?
Correct.
That is just for the AB 52 process, though. They're
Okay.
not precluded from comment on the draft
Comments on
EIR.
CEQA, sure. Okay, so if they're not involved in the AB 52 process, it's because they were given full notice and they failed to respond.
If they're on that list. If they're on that list, I mean, I don't know,
Were they on that list?
because they're not federally recognized. It's been attached 22, I believe. I'm very concerned about it.
Who are we talking?
Nevada City Ranchery.
Let me.
I don't want to speak on behalf of someone else, so.
Let me mention that AB 52, the process for AB 52, the tribes contact those agencies, those CEQA agencies that they would like to be notified for projects. And so UAIC, I believe, contacted the Nevada Irrigation District to be noticed when they had a project, and they were. So that's how the project process works for CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act.
And Nevada City Rancheria was on the distribution list.
Can
For
I-
the NLP.
For the NLP. And was the Colfax group on that list?
I will double check, but I believe so.
Okay.
I'd like to see us do some kind of outreach. I realize that they can't maybe be at the first step because that's already passed, that opportunity. But I've had enough contact with the Nevada City group to know that they would be interested in what's going on. I can't speak for them either, but we need to do some outreach to both these groups. So, and I'd like to know what form that might take at this time.
Scott?
What's with the unrecognized part?
Good question.
So neither of the tribes are federally recognized.
Whereas the
Nevada
Nevada
City
City
Rancheria and
is.
the Colfax band are not federally recognized. But that's not necessarily material. Our difficulty is that AB 52 is a confidential process between those that are in it. And so there isn't a way to include another body. My recommendation to Nevada City Rancheria, when I spoke with Shelley, was to work through the UAIC. So they have a contact with UAIC members. They can speak through that tribe to us in this process, but they are not eligible to be inside the confidential process itself, as I understand it.
Because of this recognition thing.
Because of the recognition thing. It puts a bubble around all of the negotiations that go on between the entity and the tribe.
And the recognition is federal or state?
Federal.
Federal.
And presumably the Nevada City group and the Colfax group have retained all rights to comment and participate in the CEQA process.
Yes, they're
They're
allowed
commenting.
to comment and have.
Okay.
Keeping with the final item, I appreciate, I think this all wraps up when we talk about, could you outline for the board the federal, how this transparency works with these documents and the cultural stuff?
Yeah, so this secret document is going to, the cultural study is going to support the secret document. It's also going to start the process with Section 106, which is the National Historic Preservation Act. That's a federal act. And federally recognized tribes are going to be able to consult with the lead federal agency on the project during that process. So the AB 52 is the secret process for tribal consultation.
So state and federal difference there. So-
And federal lead agency in this case is the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yes,
Correct.
and so separate documentation processes there as well. So we're working on the CEQA process, the state process, as well as the AB 52 process. Separately, we're assisting NID, and NID is providing information to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the NEPA process, which includes the Section 106 process.
I'm trying to think of some way to get this information to Shelley Coburn.
I had a meeting with her, we discussed it. and then-
Yeah, but I think she needs to know the actions of this board, so if it's not inappropriate, I request that this section of the minutes be emailed to her. If you don't have contact, I'll get one for you.
Get it.
That's fine.
At this point, I think we've addressed all the comments that were presented to us earlier.
Here,
You're right behind you.
there's a gentleman behind you. Sorry.
Oh, except for one.
Thank you. I'm late to arrive with a comment on this item. My comment is more of a question.
Please state your name again.
Mikos Faberson, resident of Nevada City. My comment has to do with the synchronization of the CEQA process along with NEPA. As everybody knows, that NEPA is now in the scoping phase of the EIS, which is essentially the federal equivalent of the EIR process. And given the expenditures and the magnitude of these, and I want to be clear, I'm not opposing the expenditure of that's under this particular item, because I think that's kind of an investigation is, well, not just required by law, but it's morally the right thing to do. But I'm concerned that these two processes are out of sync, and that we're getting ahead on the process under the EIR as though we're going to finish everything, and then we're going to turn around, and now with NEPA and that whole process being out of synchronization with what's going on with CEQA, there's either going to be duplication or some determination that possibly could be made under the NEPA scoping that says, whoops, maybe we should slow down or look at some things that haven't been considered under CEQA. So I just am worried that they're out of sync and that the expenditures may be inappropriate, perhaps under the CEQA process, and that the two processes be aligned so that there isn't duplication and we go forward in a sensible manner. So.
Welcome to our world. It's herding cats at times. I mean, it would be nice in the best of all
Does anyone
worlds.
want to address the synchronization issue?
What? Different agencies march at different paces is what I'm saying. We would like to, but we can't always get it to.
Can I stop here real quick? It sounds like we're getting a whole new series of comments. I would request we do the same thing we did in the first series of comments and have all the comments received and respond to them accordingly. It keeps a little bit of jumping up and down to a minimum. Also creates some linearity in our responses because some of them overlap. That's okay with the board.
I actually agree with that. I think that the last comment is a good comment, but it really doesn't pertain to this item specifically.
Maury Hall again. So just to build on my previous comment about the process. So I think if I understood Gary correctly, he said 151 cultural sites have been identified so far. And presumably, as the investigation continues, that number may increase. Is that correct?
No, don't answer.
Please. We're going to take a
Okay.
Can't answer that one.
So my question is...
Is that the privacy thing?
Could I request that people direct it to the board, please?
The question is to the board.
Oh,
Staff will
okay.
answer the question at the
The
board.
board will distribute to staff accordingly.
All right, so again, my question is about the process. So we have these 151 sites that have been identified so far. That number may increase. So now what happens once the site is identified? What happens beyond that? So that's my question.
Okay.
Do we want a response to that?
Well, we were going to do linear in the group, get them all together.
Hi, my name is Nina Suarez again, and I would like to state for the record that in the 1950s, the federal government took a policy of termination toward the Native American tribes, and a lot of tribes who still exist today were terminated, but they're still here. And under my understanding of state law is that unrecognized tribes are considered in the process, whereas in federal law, you need that federal recognition for a seat at the table. I would like to also state that Rose Enos was on the list to be notified and was dropped without her knowledge, because the list was then limited to tribal groups rather than individuals. So they did not have a chance to respond in the 30-day window. And in the interest, are we having a dialogue or am I making a comment?
You're making a comment.
Oh, okay.
I was curious who Rose was. I don't
Oh, Rose Enos is
trying to listen.
the granddaughter of Chief Kelly, the road in Nevada City named after Chief Kelly. This is his granddaughter. They lived up towards Cement Hill in the reservation that used to be there. They're since relocated down to Clipper Gap, and they are the ones that are putting on the Mission public dialogue. And yes,
Right on, thank you.
you're welcome.
That's why I raised my hand.
Okay, and they do want to be involved in the process. They've always wanted to be involved in the process, and they were taken away from being involved in the process and told it was a big secret, which is, it's humorous to me because we know where the sites are. You know, I mean, it's not a secret from us. But anyway, the other thing is that in human decency, these people have survived the gold rush, which was a genocide on these people. Then they were terminated, and now you're telling them, well, you didn't make the 30 days, you're out. And this is their cultural area. This is where they go. They go there. UAIC, I'm not real familiar with them. I know they own the Thunder Valley Casino, and I know they have the resources to be a big player in this. The people who are the survivors of people who were massacred during the gold rush and are hanging on by the skin of their nails in this area are being left out of the process, and this is an injustice. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to do what we did last time. I think that worked out well. I'd like to summarize the questions and allow our consultant to get up. The NEPA CEQA process, whether there is overlap and unnecessary overlap, I do not know if you wish me to have somebody respond to that. What happens after the site is identified, whatever, we can happily answer that. And the process of termination or the contact with these other groups are non-recognized. I guess we can respond to that too. I still want to re-emphasize that we have not entered the draft EIR segment where there's opportunities to make additional comments on the documents and such. So this is just for this issue. But at this point, I request that we respond to the NEPA CEQA, if we can do that pretty quickly. What happens after the site, and then on the last one, the termination policy, I don't know exactly how we need to respond to that, but dealing with the unrecognized individuals, I think you can discuss that too. Thank you.
So to address the CEQA-NEPA synchronization issue, yes, CEQA is running ahead of the NEPA process. That is because NID can initiate the CEQA process. The NEPA process has to be initiated by a federal agency. The action there, the nexus there, is the U.S. or the Clean Water Act Section 404, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit. That is the permitting nexus that is initiating the NEPA process. That process, as you all have seen, has started. The notice of intent to prepare a draft environmental impact statement, which is the NEPA documentation, was released earlier this year, and comment for that just closed, although comments are always accepted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers until the draft EIS is released for public review. That document, the EIS, is intended to be released for public review in early 2018, hopefully January, February timeframe. The CEQA document, the draft EIR, Environmental Impact Report, is intended to be released later this year, hopefully September, October timeframe. And so therefore will run generally about 3, 4, 5 months ahead of the draft NEPA document. Much of what is being done by our teams for the CEQA process, for the Environmental Impact Report, will feed into the NEPA document. Many of those analyses are similar, if not the same. There are additional resources that will need to be addressed in the EIS and the NEPA document, and those will be addressed at that time. The contract that is initiated or arranged between NID, Army Corps of Engineers, and the Army Corps of Engineers contractor allows NID to provide that material to the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Army Corps of Engineers then provides that to the EIS contractor. So it is an applicant-fed process. So much of the information we are doing and analyses and evaluations for the CEQA document is being fed over to the Army Corps of Engineers to go into the EIS document. So there is, yes, a little delay and the potential for the documents to include some different information, given the time delay there. But the intent is that most of that information from the CEQA document is being used also in the process. So hopefully that addresses that question.
Yeah, just again, to address the comment on next steps in the process for identifying resources. Once we've identified all the resources that are out there, we are going to evaluate them for their historical significance. Essentially, the point of doing that is to assess which resources are important and which ones aren't. And the determination of which resources are important is we evaluate them against state and federal evaluation criteria, which are in CEQA and Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. Once we've then evaluated all of those resources against those criteria, doing a combination of conducting archival research and archaeological test programs and gathering information from the public and public archives and information, then we know which resources are significant. And once we know which resources are significant, then we can treat those resources. And that's part of the next stage in the process, is developing mitigation for the impact to those specific resources. That's it. Thanks.
Is there input from the indigenous people?
Yeah, United Auburn Indian Community under AB 52.
They get to say what's important a little bit?
They do. They get to contribute to that process.
Not just a text somewhere, but we have people saying what they think is important.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, that concludes public comment. Any board member comments?
I think we want to address the unrecognized tribes momentarily. So, real quick, as was mentioned, those tribes that didn't get in under the window for AB 52 still can consult as part of the public, the release of the public documents, and of course, those federally recognized tribes will be consulted by the federal agency under the Section 106 process.
So I'd like to see those identified, the Colfax and Nevada City, and then that they can receive, and have them receive a letter from NID or from the consultants saying that they still can have input, if I understood correctly.
Okay.
Just so there's a direct contact with these people.
Okay.
That we made the effort. You know, the ins and outs of who's recognized and who isn't in the federal eyes is a world separate from Nevada County.
On this subject, Destin, we talk a lot about the validity of our studies as we do the environmental impact report. So this is a curious caveat of these unrecognized, yet the report's going to have the recognized. Does it invalidate or have an effect on the validity of our, you know, do you understand what I'm asking?
I think so.
We always concerned that we want to make sure that we adequately took everybody's input.
Right.
Okay.
They're not recognized under AB 52.
So legally.
So legally, they don't have a role in that process. That's not a gripe with NID. That's a gripe with the legislature. Our document, you know,
Our document is what I'm asking about.
Our document is going to conduct the most thorough assessment we can do, and you know, it's premature at this point to say what the document's going to say, but our document's not going to change whether they're a recognized tribe or not. They'll have the opportunity to...
Because we'll have their comments.
Correct.
Okay.
I was just going to say, they'll have, hopefully they'll comment.
Well,
we don't know that they will for
to,
sure,
yeah,
but yeah, they'll be invited to, as any other interested member of the public or community association would. So hopefully they will.
At this point, it is a recommendation of engineering staff to approve a contract with HDR in amount of task order number 10 in the amount of $385,981 and allow the general manager to execute the appropriate documents.
So moved.
The gentleman or the general manager?
He's both a general manager and a gentleman. Considering he signs my time sheet, sir, he's very much a gentleman.
But there are other gentlemen, so let's specify it was the general manager.
Did I hear a motion in a second?
Who's my
Yeah,
second?
we have a motion and a second.
Who's the second?
Division 1.
Division one.
I was.
Thank you. And are we ready for roll call?
Roll call, please.
All right, Division 1,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 4,
Aye.
Division 5.
Hi.
Thank you, Board.
And that concludes item number 5. Move on to item number 6. Marvin. We'll take a break. Okay, I think I hear Nation calling. We'll take 5. We'll take 3. Good questions.
Welcome back. Thanks.
Even though we're recording, you just never know. I have to say.